Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and as the title suggests, I wanted to talk about the brand new trailer for Star Trek Discovery Season 2 that debuted at SDCC, San Diego Comic-Con, recently, as of the time of this recording, in the last couple of days. I have been all kinds of stoked watching this thing half a dozen times. Loved Lenny Kravitz blasting out the ass in this sucker, and, for those who have been following my content on my channel for some time now, you'll be completely aware of the fact that I watched and reviewed every episode of the first season of Star Trek Discovery. Some of the episodes were a little bit give and take, were a little bit of a love-hate scenario for me as a long-time, lifelong almost Trekkie, especially conforming to the original series and stuff like that, and reading some of the, Trek literature, the books, novels, things of that sort, and all the movies. There isn't an iteration of Star Trek that I don't find some love for. I love them all. And the same can largely be said for Star Trek Discovery, although I did have some issues with it. Some of the pacing issues, the payoff in the end of the season with the Klingon War and everything like that. Dropping the F-bomb, which, is something I've tried to look past, but it still bothers me. It doesn't sit well with me. And I went into my reasoning, back talking about that specific episode. But by and large, I loved what they did with Star Trek Discovery. It was its own unique spin on the Star Trek moniker, that kind of thing. And so getting into this, trailer, I was about to come on, talking about all these different ideas about, what is the season-long arc going to be? And is Captain Pike going to be in command of the Discovery for the entire season? And all this kind of stuff and all these speculations. And then, in preparation of actually coming on to do this video, I read the title of the trailer on the, Star Trek YouTube channel. And it's the Season 2 premiere first look trailer, not a Season 2 sort of overview trailer of everything that's going to become. This is just the first episode or 2 episodes, however long they're considering the premiere of Season 2 to be. So, it kind of confines it down a little bit more, whittles it down as far as room for speculation goes. But the piece de resistance, they began with it in this trailer for me, which is the debut of Captain Christopher Pike, as played by the actor Anson Mount, who I'm completely unfamiliar with his work. I recognize the name, but of course I don't know who he is, where he's from, anything like that. From right off the bat, being so familiar with Jeffrey Hunter and Bruce Greenwood as the other alternative Pikes on screen, the original series pilot, The Cage, as well as the two-parter, The Menagerie from the original series, which featured Jeffrey Hunter, as well as Bruce Greenwood in the, Abrams verse, if you will, the Kelvin Timeline films. I've taken a liking to both of these iterations, these incarnations of Christopher Pike, and plus the literature that I've read. I've read novels such as Vulcan's Glory by D.C. Fontana, the Captain's Table series Where Sea Meets Sky, Burning Dreams by Margaret Wander Bonanno, and things like that, which mostly conformed to the Jeffrey Hunter version of the character. Burning Dreams being just a spectacular read in how it sort of brings everything back around. Spock is heavily involved in that story, and it's post sort of the end of the life of, the Jeffrey Hunter, if you will, version of Pike. But it is such a miraculous story in how it gets in the mind of Pike as a person, his days on Talos, and all this kind of stuff, calling back to the original series. But so with all of that forethought in mind, of course, there is some trepidation on my part as a Trekkie, a Star Trek fan, a fan of Christopher Pike, the character. That is most often, checked by me as being the untapped era of Star Trek, the era that is so enigmatic because there's so little of it on screen. His captaincy, 10 or 11 years before Kirk would take over the Enterprise, that it's one that I'm most interested in. I really want to learn more about and everything like that. And being born out of the Cold War era and everything like that, there's always this sense of cold, wintry planets and beaming down and, being debuted to brand new species and things like that, that is so captivating to me, because it's just slightly an offshoot of what we have gotten in the original series and Next Generation and Deep Space Nine and Voyager and Enterprise. Even though it was a precursor, it's still 100 years before Kirk and Spock, So there's so much of that timeline that is rife for the picking, story-wise and such like that. And the fact that Pike is going to be a part of at least this series premiere of Season 2, it is all kinds of exciting. I liked the embodiment of the character, the very sort of colloquial coming aboard the Discovery and being like, well, you got to jump in the water, especially when it's bad news. I'm taking over command. It's my ship now. And I thought that was an interesting thing. That's the one bit of speculation that carries over from my season-long speculations, thinking this was a season-long trailer initially. That is a holdover, is that it was also announced at SDCC that Rebecca Romijn has been cast as number 1 from the Pike Enterprise, which, was played by Majel Barrett Roddenberry back in the day in that Cage pilot, as well as she is seen, in the two-parter, The Menagerie. She's also Nurse Chapel, of course, in the original series, and Laxmana Troy. Always stumble over that damn name. Deanna Troy's mother on The Next Generation and such like that. The voice of the computer throughout TNG, DS9, and all that stuff. And I'm a big fan of Romain's work. I'm a big fan of her acting talents and everything like that. I'm of course mostly curious to see, is she going to retain her blonde hair? Is she going to dye it? Is she going to wear like a darker wig? Because of course in the original pilot, The Cage, number 1 was seen as having dark hair, and it's just, there's something iconic about that look. I think that might be my favorite portrayal on screen of Majel Barrett's, because again, it's that untapped era that we've seen so little of. It was so captivating in its being so enigmatic and provocative and things like that. And there was really just no more, for a very long time, apart from what they started to delve into in novels and such, and even comic books. But so I had begun to wonder if Christopher Pike is going to take command of the Discovery, thinking in terms of it being season long, but even in just this, opening premiere for the second season, does that then leave number 1 in command of the Enterprise? Because from what we're told in this, trailer, Spock has taken leave. Spock has taken himself somewhere. And it is very much dealing with whatever this preoccupation is with these red orbs, across space, across the galaxy, however many light years or whatever it was they described it as, sensors having picked it up and not knowing whether it was genial or malicious or whatever, and they want to go investigate this stuff. There are interesting visions on the behalf of Michael Burnham, Sonequa Martin Green's character, where it's like some silhouette is coming toward her, and the way it's edited, it almost looks like it has spider legs or wings or something. And I don't know, is this going to be Captain Georgiou on a secret mission where they butt heads again, or what is it going to be? Is it going to be Spock making his reveal? They're sort of tiptoeing around whether or not Spock is going to be a thing, and I cannot for the life of me remember, because it's been a while that I've heard or tuned into any Discovery, news, whether or not Spock has been cast, whether or not we will actually see him. There are hints and whispers, and of course, a lot of the cast were talking in interviews around SDCC recently, coinciding with this trailer debut. There was a lot of discussion about everything. Sort of all points lead to Spock in a manner of speaking, in a certain means. And I'm really curious to see how this is going to shape up. There's a lot of this sort of overarching plot aesthetic that reminds me of the journey Spock is on in the motion picture, as relates to V'ger and having gone off to Vulcan to try to master his, logic and expel all emotions, all remaining emotions. Not quite being able to complete that journey because V'ger was out there. He was sensing it. It was calling to him. And it seems like this is kind of the same or similar extension preoccupation for him, and being how closely related he is with Michael Burnham, that's going to be interesting, especially if he does appear in this series. And so, I mean, I couldn't be, more excited for this. There's just so much about it that is captivating and exciting to me in the presentation of this trailer. I posted over on my Facebook, where I post a lot of stuff when I'm not making videos every single day or every other day or once a week about any given topic, be it, Doctor Who, Star Trek, anime, or whatever. But I posted, there's always going to be that comparison being drawn between the Orville and Star Trek Discovery, and I enjoy both for what they are. But as far as second season trailers goes, I did the little sideways B pointing the bigger mouth end toward Discovery in the comparison between the two trailers, because the Discovery trailer just amped me up. It just got my juices pumping and my excitement up, gave me goosebumps with the debut of Captain Pike and again the Lenny Kravitz song. Everything like that, it was just balls to the wall awesome sauce. And they end it with this great joke. Linus, I think he's a Saurian, who's got like a cold or whatever, he's all choked up. Everyone's coming into the Jeffries tube or whatever it is. I'm a bad Trekkie, I can't think of the name of it. The lift, whatever you want to call it. And here you have him sneeze on like one of Pike's guys, because he's all choked up and he's like snorting, whatever it is. And it was a funny moment. It made me laugh out loud. And so, holy hell, I cannot wait to see this second season. I really am wondering, how it's all going to play out. Touching back just briefly upon my sort of season-long speculations that I was about to come on and talk about, there's a point, all through the trailer, you see Pike in a gold uniform, tunic or top, which has certain patterns and aesthetics in design that mirror what we see, the Discovery crew wearing and everything, sort of bands down each of the shoulders, and though they are, gold to match the fabric and everything like that. The one thing I don't like about these uniform tops is the collar, how like one half of it sort of hangs down askew instead of just sort of coming together in the front or being, sort of having an equilibrium there, which is, I guess, a minor nitpick. But then we see Pike again later wearing a Discovery proper sort of uniform, so I don't know how much of this premiere or the entirety of the season is going to see Pike helming, the command station of the Discovery, whether he's going to be wearing the gold tunic the entire time, or that's just what he's wearing when he comes aboard and then he wears the proper Discovery uniform, I do like that it showcases that even though, the Enterprise is off having its adventures 10 years prior to Kirk and Spock and everything like that, that it does clarify the aesthetics in the uniforms, that, Discovery, it's its own ship, it's its own kind of special vessel and everything like that. They have their own special uniforms. Most of Starfleet has them. But even more top tier than that is the Constitution class. It's such a specialized class that they have their own colorful, gold, red, and blue tunic shirts and everything like that, which I know if you go back to The Cage and even Where No Man Has Gone Before, the second pilot that saw William Shatner take over for Jeffrey Hunter as James T. Kirk, I know it doesn't quite work. They didn't have that color palette and uniform style, in the original pilot, and things like that. It's one of those things where I'm done complaining about things like that, because this show is doing its own thing. It's sort of reinventing the wheel, the aesthetics of the era, and you can take it or leave it. Nobody's going to hold a gun to your head and say it has to be one way or the other. It doesn't erase what we have, those 79 original episodes and whatever. So it does bother me a little bit with the collar and how it doesn't quite match the aesthetics, but how much of this show does. I just want a spectacular, adventurous, meaningful, gravitas-laden and pathos-laden story and characterization. That's the most you can really ask. And I got enough of that in the first season to have me thoroughly on board for season 2. And if I wasn't already, this trailer definitely grabbed me by the lapels and hasn't let me go. You know. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of the Star Trek Discovery season 2 premiere, you know, first look trailer. Very lengthy title for this thing, but is all encompassing to just the opening premiere, however long that's going to be, movie length or a couple of episodes back to back. And, you know, love it or hate it. Anything goes. Just be respectful. Respect the fact that I love it. I'm done sort of complaining about all the things that don't match up with our prior on-screen iterations of this era of Star Trek. And just don't be a hater. You know, that's the thing. There's so much trolling and hate going on in all of these different, you know, sort of pop culture, different titles and franchises, Star Wars and Star Trek and whatever. You know, Marvel versus DC. It's all nonsense. We should be enjoying this stuff. So yeah, with that in mind, that'll be pretty much it for me on this one. If this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Live long and prosper, my friends.